Oh, that's true. Okay, got it.
Right, we are up to
Oh,
number 3 there. So I think Gary should read because we haven't heard his dulcet tones for weeks.
I know.
whoa. Weeks have you
Series of
been?
circumstances prevented me from being here.
Yes.
Oh,
Let's start. There are two diametrically opposed ways of seeing your brother. They must both be in your mind because you are the perceiver. They must also be in his because you are perceiving him. See him through the Holy Spirit in his mind, and you will recognize him in yours. What you acknowledge in your brother, you are acknowledging in yourself. And what you share, you strengthen. I adore that statement.
yeah. Very nice.
Do we need to break it down, gang? Are we good? Should we elaborate or not?
I
I
think we
think
should
we
I
can.
elaborate just so we can sit with it for a while.
Yes, you have a question?
just want to say that we're just amazing.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Um, I'll just go for it about what I get out of this. Hmm.
My God, it's so appropriate at the moment.
It is. I love the last line when it says, what you acknowledge in your brother, you are acknowledging in yourself. And what you share, you strengthen. Um, I know in a lot of my trainings, I say something quite similar. It's like we only see a reflection of ourselves in another. And whatever we're judging, if we are judging, it is that part of ourselves. We wouldn't even be able to recognize that quality in another person unless we recognized it in ourselves. And so what this is saying to me is that if we see through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, we actually strengthen not only our connection to the Holy Spirit, but we empower our the person, whoever it is that we are judging or looking at or in relationship with. We hold up the light for them to be able to recognize it in themselves. So it's the course repeats this over and over and over again to see through the eyes of the Holy Spirit. But this is such a beautiful line where what you acknowledge in your brother, you're acknowledging in yourself, meaning that it's always a projection from our own minds. And if we're thinking in a separated mind, that's what we're seeing, that's what we're focused on. And if we're perceiving in an atonement mind, that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're strengthening. I
It's
love that.
profound. It's just profoundly simple, really.
I say this a lot to clients is that, you only see a reflection of your own self, and that's all that you can actually see. So if you're blessing others, that blessing returns to you tenfold. And if you're cursing others, you curse that part of yourself as well.
Mm.
Does anyone else have anything they want to add to that?
Something that you've always said, Gary, I always like come back to now is your subconscious doesn't know whether you're talk. It only knows itself. It only knows you. So if you talk about other people, whatever you say about them, your subconscious says, yes, that's you.
Yeah, it's like our subconscious mind takes our language literally and it takes it personally. So as we're speaking, either internally in our internal dialogue or externally in our speech, um, our subconscious mind always takes it as if you are speaking about it, about you. It takes it personally and literally. So that's why to guard who you hang out with well, um, don't hang out with people that gossip and speak ill about others because your subconscious mind is hearing that, taking it personally. I don't know anyone that has ever sat at a table where people are talking ill about others and got it from the table and felt inspired Like that's impossible because your energy drops listening to people dish on other people. So be mindful of the company we keep, and be mindful of what comes out of our mouth or in our own internal dialogue.
Mm.
Who'd like to take number 4?
I'll do
I
it.
don't mind.
Good
Oh,
on you.
Go for Carly. She spoke first, then Julie go
She did.
next.
Yeah.
The voice of the Holy Spirit is weak in you. That is why you must share it. It must be increased in strength before you can hear it. It is impossible to hear it in yourself while it is so weak in your mind. It is not weak in itself, but it is limited by your unwillingness to hear it. If you make the mistake of looking for the Holy Spirit in yourself alone, your thoughts will frighten you, because by adopting the ego's viewpoint, you are undertaking an ego alien journey with the ego as guide. This is bound to produce fear.
Mm.
I'm going to need to read that again.
Yeah, me too.
Well, in the paragraph above, it says, what you acknowledge in your brother, you are acknowledging in yourself, and what you share, you strengthen. Then number 4 says, it goes, it is, and it says that is why you must share it, meaning the perspective of the Holy Spirit in others, like the soul in others. It must be increased in strength before you can hear it. So it's almost like the way to enlightenment or atonement is to actually choosing to see the light of God in others, which strengthens it in yourself. Then it says it is impossible to hear it in yourself while it is so weak in your mind. It is not weak in itself, but it is limited by your unwillingness to hear it, meaning our preoccupation with judgment and separation and our ego. If you make the mistake of looking for the Holy Spirit in yourself alone, your thoughts will frighten you, because by adopting the ego's viewpoint, you're undertaking an ego alien journey with the ego as its guide. So when it says if you make the mistake of, there it is, if you make the mistake of looking for the Holy Spirit in yourself alone, meaning you're choosing not to see the Holy Spirit or the spark of the divine in other people, but only thinking that you're going to find it in yourself without recognizing it in other people, your thoughts will frighten you. Yeah, I'm scared all the time. So, because by adopting the ego's viewpoint, you're meaning that I'm looking for God inside of me, but it's not out here. You are undertaking an ego alien journey. I love that.
Mm.
Was that clear for everyone, or do we need to add something or
No,
review this?
the way you read it that second time, it made more sense, because you kind of paused after in yourself alone. It almost like a pause. Your thoughts will frighten you.
Yeah,
It's only in yourself, because if you share what you're looking for, you strengthen that thought, that idea.
somewhere in our reading of the Course in Miracles, we're going to, because I've been through it about 4 or 5 times, but we're going to come to a place where it says, you walk hand in hand into heaven with your brothers and sisters. I mean, like there's no way to get to heaven except for hand in hand with your brothers and sisters. And I used to read that and think, oh, people are too messed up. I mean, if I have to walk hand in hand with all those, it's like, I'm never going to get there, right? Of course, not filled with judgment or ego or separation or anything. But this so ties into that, because it's fundamentally saying we strengthen our connection with God by recognizing and seeing it in other people. And so our ability to strengthen the presence of the Holy Spirit in ourselves comes from acknowledging it and practicing it, seeing it in other people. And that leads us to a more atonement state. So, I don't know. So, I mean, how many of you just love to be around groups of people and just always so happy and always so fundamentally joyful to be around groups of people and you just trust them oh so much? How many of you have that experience? Because that's not my experience. But I do know that that is the way. You know, the ego's got all of its defenses and all of that. But I think it's super important to begin to practice that pretty wholeheartedly. I'm getting that lesson probably stronger than I've ever gotten it. So I'm so glad I'm here.
Daily.
That's beautiful.
You know,
Who'd like
that leads right into that last sentence, now that we've kind of really cleared this, because then what you acknowledge in your brother, you acknowledge in yourself, and what you share, you strengthen. So if you acknowledge that in your brother, your son, your wife, your whoever, all of a sudden you strengthen that, and that's when you can start hearing the Holy Spirit for yourself. Because
Yeah.
you're seeing, because anything, what you give away, you strengthen. Because I don't know if it's before this or anywhere, or in the front or the back, but they do talk about giving away the idea. Because by giving that idea, sharing that idea, it expands.
Yeah.
Not so much stuff, but the idea of love, it expands. So if you acknowledge that in your brother, you're acknowledging it in yourself, and that strengthens.
Yeah. Tasia, do you have experience with the Course in Miracles? And if you do or don't, please feel free to ask questions or clarification or anything.
Okay, so I have very little. I'm just licking this book for a few times.
Okay.
First a little bit with Wendy, and here is my second time. So I have a question about the
Sure.
first end of the passage number 4, and that last part of the sentence. It says the voice of the Holy Spirit is weak in you. Why does it say it's? Why it starts from this statement that is weak in me?
I'll tell you what my perspective is, and other people can add their perspectives as well. And somewhere in the perspectives of the group will offer you, you may find your answer. Fundamentally, I know that the voice of the Holy Spirit is weak because we're practicing this. It is a challenge to walk our world without judgment, with seeing the world through the eyes of oneness rather than in differences and separation. So that is why it's saying it's weak, because very few, and maybe there are those, I'm not one of them, and I aspire to be at some point in my evolution, but I know that I will walk out my door tomorrow and there will be things that I will be thinking about that will be judgmental. I won't be seeing through the eyes of the Holy Spirit. I won't be looking at atonement. I will have inconsistent results, and that is how it starts off, because that's more true than not for most of us. That's my take on that. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add to that or subtract?
No, it's good.
I think
So-
it's also
I'm
with
sorry.
the with this one, like those last 2 paragraphs are sort of saying the same thing, but from different ways. So I think that you know, because the book doesn't actually say that many things, it's just got a few points that it's
Repeats
making
it
up
over and
all
over in different ways.
Yeah, so I think it's just sort of that one's sort of more like picking you up by the scruff of the neck. Sort of is-
A little bit,
yeah,
because generally what we acknowledge and see in our brothers, you're acknowledging in yourself, and what you share, meaning if we're sharing that sort of empowered vision of another, we strengthen it in ourselves. But oftentimes, if we all sit and really authentically look at it, how many times during the day today did we look through the eyes of God, see the oneness of that other soul as a part of the divine, and as you are a part of the divine. I maybe did it 3 or 4 times, but that was about it. It certainly wasn't constantly seeing it that way.
I certainly
So
see that we see it the other way. We see the
yeah,
opposite.
we're pretty masterful at that. So I heard the statement once that the reason that judging others is so damaging is because what we project outside of ourselves as a judgment, when we're judging another, the ego then fears the same response back from the world. So if I'm attacking, I fear attack. And attacking can be not only in words and thoughts and actions, but if we're doing that separated frame of behavior, we expect the same type of treatment back to us. And so we walk our world feeling like we have to have a certain boundaries or caution signs around us because we really don't trust the world because we've attacked and we expect an attack back because that's how quote unquote the world is. But in actuality, that is not the world. Does that make sense?
No, it's us.
Okay. Did that answer
Okay.
your question, Kasia?
Well, you know, as I'm reading this, I wish that it was not saying weak. I wish it was a more gentle, because I think the problem is that we might not hear it because we are too busy figuring out things out there. And I guess that weakness, it's not really, because weak sounds like really cruel. And I think it's more like it's almost unheard. Kind of, it's hard to hear it because it's whispering with such a, you know, low volume. And as often we, you know, we keep ourselves busy in a way not listening to it, that voice might be weakening. But I feel like it's kind of too harsh with the first sentence saying it's weak.
And can I,
Yeah, go for it, Wendy.
all right. When you start working out with weights, like you're weightlifting, think of this
Right.
book as mind training.
Neither.
You're training your mind. That's what this book is all about, is training your mind to hear the Holy Spirit. So right now, our trained mind is weak in hearing the Holy Spirit. We are training it. So that just means weak, like flabby muscle weak. So what we're doing is we're training the mind. So right now, we're in chapter 5. So maybe the weights we're using and the way it's explaining it to us are just 2-pounders. Very light weights, just starting to tone the brain a little bit so we can hear the Holy Spirit. And it's telling us how to. It's saying acknowledge love in your brother, acknowledge the goodness in your brother. And it's telling us how to train our mind, like weightlifting. So it's really the word weak, like muscle, not like
Judgment.
it's not saying we're not enough. It's not saying we're not good enough. It's just saying our mind is not trained well enough. So we need to practice by listening to what the book has to say to strengthen our ability to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit.
Okay, so
It's
if I
not an
may,
attack, it's a judge. It's not even a judgment. It's just a fact. Like if you're not strong because you don't lift weights, you're weaker, right?
I understand the whole thing. I was just, you know, kind of poking into this first sentence. I understand absolutely the rest. That's not the problem. So what I'm feeling right now is that I would prefer to have the sentence maybe build the way that, you know, we are the weak listeners, but the spirit is not weak. The voice of spirit is weak.
It does say that. It says that because it says, where is it?
It's
Okay,
impossible
it
to do
says,
it.
an increasing I read it somewhere. Remember, if you make a mistake, the Holy Spirit will frighten you because of somewhere it says that, you know,
It's in
we
the
have a
second
weakness, but
second
the
line
Spirit does
toward the-
not.
It is not
Second
weak
what?
in it.
Right.
Second line, about almost like more than halfway through.
Right, right. There it is. It is in number 2, T52.
Right.
Yeah, because the Spirit, of course, is, you know, there's no weakness there at all. But you'll find, Cassia, that oftentimes the Course in Miracles will be very, very, very gentle, and then once in a while it'll go boom, and it'll say something really confronting because it's confronting the ego. And I think it's, for me anyways, it is important that ebb and flow, because of course it says the same thing over and over and over again in a variety of different ways in order to wake up the mind of really literally millions of people are reading the course, of millions of people, because there's so many different types of personalities and preferences. And sometimes it has to be super gentle, sometimes it gets right in your face, and it is to wake us all up in different ways as we read it. But the messages are consistent.
All right.
Good. Julia, would you like, Julie, would you like to read number 5?
I would. Delay is of the ego because time is its concept. Both time and delay are meaningless in eternity. I have said before that the Holy Spirit is God's answer to the ego. Everything of which the Holy Spirit reminds you is in direct opposition to the ego's notions, because true and false perceptions are themselves opposed. The Holy Spirit has the task of undoing what the ego has made. He undoes, he undoes it at the same level on which the ego operates, or the mind would be unable to understand the change. Almost needs a second read.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Julie, would you read it again? Just because we're viewing this through the eyes of our ego, and so
Yeah,
it's
I'm happily,
it's
because
so close to us that we really have to read it again, and maybe
I-
even
I-
again.
I do think it needs to be read again. So here we go.
Yeah, would
And I
you
love
give it a
when
go?
you read, Julie.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
do.
I love that you love that. Delay is of the ego because time is its concept. Both time and delay are meaningless in eternity. I have said before that the Holy Spirit is God's answer to the ego. Can I read that again? I have said before that the Holy Spirit is God's answer to the ego. Everything of which the Holy Spirit reminds you is in direct opposition to the ego's notions, because true and false perceptions are themselves opposed. Because true and false perceptions are themselves opposed. The Holy Spirit has the task of undoing what the ego has made. He undoes it at the same level on which the ego operates, or the mind would be unable to understand the change.
I'll give it a crack if you guys
I
want me
think the
to.
mind can only act in a egotistical way almost. Is that what it means?
Well, the first line says delay is of the ego because time is its concept.
Yeah.
It says both time and delay are meaningless in eternity. So the ego will be looking at past and future, delay and good and bad, because then it goes on to talk about how the ego will operate in true and false perceptions, which is
Mm,
constantly seeing duality.
mm,
But the Holy Spirit's answer is, and if we can think about it this way, that when we are in that state, and I won't say it's easy to get to, I find it difficult to get to, but when we get to that state where we can only see the, I know I keep going back to this, and forgive me for being redundant, but I think this is what the course is all based on, is when we can see God, and if we have a devotion and a love for the divine, so we have a love for the Creator, let's say, and we see that spark of the divine in all things around us, then there is no time, there is no delay. It's like
mm,
we stop time by seeing the eternity of the creation of God or the presence of God in all things. When we're able to do that, then delay and time and true and false disappear, because the mind, when the mind is in that state of duality, it is absolutely not seeing the spark of the divine at all, or
mm.
not associated to it. When we bypass all, and I think what this is saying, all of the judgment, and we are just simply in this moment with this next breath, looking into another's eyes or looking at the nature around us, and we see different manifestations of God in its myriad forms, that is when we're able to bypass separation, bypass time and space, and only see the eternity of the Creator. Now, I think that's what it's saying. That is a big leap generally from where most of us are. Myself, absolutely. But I think that once in a while I can get there. And that's what I experience, that time and space disappears, right and wrong, judgment disappears. And all I am is in that second of feeling that at one.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything they want to add to that, subtract from that?
No, but I'd like to be like it all the time.
I think we all would. Wendy or V or Caroline or
I-
Cassia?
I'm just, yes, I have an idea that's kind of helping me encapsulate this, and it's so when those moments where you capture that feeling of being connected, it's remembering that at times when you don't feel connected so that you can become connected. I think there's power in remembering who we are like that in that situation, so that we can keep producing that, creating that.
And that's how we strengthen it in ourselves, is seeing it in another. So when we can see it outside of
Yeah,
ourselves and
yeah.
identify it in another, it strengthens our capacity within ourselves and returns us back to ourselves for that moment. And I know somewhere in the course it'll talk about the holy instant, which is, that is what the holy instant is, are those moments when you only see the divine in the world around you and all of its myriad forms. Yes, Wendy.
You're
You're
unmuted.
muted, darling. You're muted.
You're still muted.
No, muted.
Kidlet ran through. And I was not with, I was like so focused on this. He undoes it at the same level on which the ego operates,
Right.
which is perception and projection. But instead, the ego, of course, the Holy Spirit does not project, he expands like God, right?
Right.
So we wouldn't understand, like, if there were just bright lights and perfection. We have to understand it on a slower level because we're relearning. So he has to do it on the same level which the ego operates. So he does have to use perception, and he has to do it the way we understand. So that's why we have to look out at our brothers through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, because that's the only, because we need to see it in them instead of blaming them. We need to forgive them. It's a different operation, but it's on the
I-
same level. Obviously, if you have to forgive something you initially thought there was a trespass, but by forgiving it, you take it back. You're like, wait a second. So now you're thinking something else is going on. Sometimes I feel it. Sometimes I don't know what it is, and I just let it be. But it definitely, sometimes I understand. You know, like today, I could have lost it a few times, but I paused a second. I said, that's my ego. That must be how I'm feeling about myself somehow.
Mhm.
I turned it around, and in doing that, it diminished on its own. And I don't.
If I'm sorry, I thought you were done, Wendy.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. If you guys want a very simple way to do this, very simple. It's not at the level of seeing through the eyes of the atonement, but it is a step towards that. Is pick up Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. And it has 4 or 5 questions that you can self-coach yourself on. If you've not come across that book, I would highly recommend that you get it and read it, because it is Byron Katie calls it the turnaround. Whereas fundamentally, you ask yourself 4 questions, and then you start to reflect how whatever's happening outside of you is a reflection of something, of a state that you are in, or that you have done, or that you practice. And you look at how it is a reflection of things about yourself that you can't see. It's a very, very powerful system to begin to stop the projection and stop the judgment of others. And it's gentle, it's beautiful, and it's hard to do, but it works. It is a really good adjunctive to what these paragraphs are telling us right now. A really good adjunctive. So pick up Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is, and practice her, questions. I think it's the 4 questions, I think she calls it, and then the turnaround.
There's a lot of her stuff on YouTube. If you want to watch her taking people through the questions, it's really good.
Yeah,
Mm.
she's something else. I
Yeah.
first met her when we had a mutual student before Katie got really, really, really famous. And she said, "Oh, you guys have to meet. You have to meet. You guys really will love each other. You got to meet." And so we met at this outdoor cafe by Balboa Park in San Diego. And I walked up to her. I probably told you this story a million times, but walked up to her, and we didn't speak for about 45 minutes. All we did was look into each other's eyes and cry. And then she finally said, "It's good to see you again." And I'm like, "Yes, it is." So
Wow.
she's an enlightened soul, that lady. And she's tapped in. There you go. That's it.
Oh,
That's
wow.
it. That's the
Kasha,
book.
can you post it over to me?
And she's lovely. She's really, really lovely. So the congruency between what she teaches and who she is pretty rock solid.
She's
Shall we move
walking
on?
her talk.
Yes.
Just message you the link.
Thank you.
Who wants to read number 6?
Oh, I'll do that. It's only 3
Wendy.
lines.
A nice short one.
Go for it, Wendy.
All right.
I have repeatedly emphasized that one level of the mind is not understandable to another. So it is with the ego and the Holy Spirit, with time and eternity. Eternity is an idea of God, so the Holy Spirit understands it perfectly. time is a belief of the ego. So the lower mind, which is the ego's domain, accepts it without question. The only aspect of time that is eternal is now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Love it.
Do we need to elaborate on that, or does everybody get that?
I think a second reading's good.
Yeah.
I could do it.
Yeah.
Go
I
for
think
it,
so.
Wendy.
I have repeatedly emphasized that one level of the mind is not understandable to another. So it is with the ego and the Holy Spirit, with time and eternity. Eternity is an idea of God, so the Holy Spirit understands it perfectly. Time is a belief of the ego. So the lower mind, which is the ego's domain, accepts it without question.
Mm.
Only aspect of time that is eternal is now. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
It's
good. Yeah.
double wow.
Very good.
I love that last sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. You.
This I have felt. I've had
Mm.
days that I did not doing in a doing sense, but got so much done and did nothing. But everything was completed, and it was like amazing. And then I would look up at the clock and it'd be like only 1 o'clock. And it was really a miracle. And I've had days where I really tried to crush it and got nothing done. And it was 7 at night. And I was, I definitely have had that experience. And I would say that I was in spirit and everything just flowed beautifully and time never passed. Or I wasn't in spirit, and no matter what I did, it was never getting done.
Yeah.
So
Does anyone have anything else they want to say about this paragraph?
No, it's good.
Who would like to read number 7?
I don't think I've read anything yet, so I'll do it. Have I read it?
Oh,
I don't
good.
remember. The Holy Spirit is the mediator between the interpretations of the ego and the knowledge of the Spirit. His ability to deal with symbols enables him to work with the ego's beliefs in its own language. His ability to look beyond symbols into eternity enables him to understand the laws of God, for which he speaks. He can therefore perform the function of reinterpreting what the ego makes, not by destruction, but by understanding. Understanding is light, and light leads to knowledge. The Holy Spirit is in light because he is in you who are light, but you yourself do not know this. It is therefore the task of the Holy Spirit to reinterpret you on behalf of God.
I feel that last sentence is quite humorous.
Yeah.
Here's the legal representation. I love that he can therefore perform the function of reinterpreting what the ego makes, not by destruction, but by understanding.
Mm.
And for me, I visualize that with like, if I've made judgment on people these days, you know, it still happens, but then I kind of think about it and try and see from their perspective what they might be going through to have created this incident. And that that's what I see here, is actually trying to understand someone, not just blaming them or accusing them or judging them, because it's not, it's not how you run your life, but it's where they're coming from, and to understand and empathize with them at their point and just love them from there. That's what I get from this one.
I think that's pretty spot on, V.
Mm.
Who wants to do the next one?
I'm happy to if you want me to do it again.
Go
Yes,
for it, too.
please, Julie.
You cannot understand yourself alone. This is because you have no meaning apart from your rightful place in the sonship. And the rightful place of the sonship is God. This is your life, your eternity, and yourself. It is of this that the Holy Spirit reminds you. It is this that the Holy Spirit sees. This vision frightens the ego because it is so calm. Peace is the ego's greatest enemy because, according to its interpretation of reality, war is the guarantee of its survival. The ego becomes strong in strife. If you believe there is strife, you will react viciously because the idea of danger has entered your mind. The idea itself is an appeal to the ego. The Holy Spirit is as vigilant as the ego to the call of danger, opposing it with his strength, just as the ego welcomes it. The Holy Spirit counters this welcome by welcoming peace. Eternity and peace are as closely related as are time and war.
Mm.
Wow. It's that duality, is it? Or what's the opposite?
Yeah.
Eternity and peace are as closely related as are time and war. Boo.
Wendy, what you said before about the days when you've just struggled all day and it gets to 7 o'clock and you feel like you've achieved nothing. That's the war with time, isn't it?
Oh. And self. And self
Yeah,
at the same.
It's also competitiveness, isn't it? It's sort of
comparing and competitive, yeah.
I'll go ahead and read
I
number
was gonna
9.
say, I find when I think I know better, or I think I know better, that's when I'm at war.
So number 9. Perception derives meaning from relationships. Those you accept are the foundations of your beliefs. The separation is merely another term for a split mind. The ego is a symbol of separation, just as the Holy Spirit is a symbol of peace. What you perceive in others, you are strengthening in yourself. You may let your mind misperceive, but the Holy Spirit lets your mind reinterpret its own misperceptions. I must need to read this a few times to get it, because here it is again in the first paragraph that I read.
I'll read it again, Gary. Go on.
I will. Perception derives meaning from relationships. Those you accept are the foundations of your beliefs. The separation is merely another term for a split mind. The ego is the symbol of separation, just as a Holy Spirit is a symbol of peace. What you perceive in others, you are strengthening in yourself. You may let your mind misperceive, meaning judge and do all that, but the Holy Spirit lets your mind reinterpret its own misperceptions. I love that from the perspective that, yes, we're going to, until we get in the absolute critical habit of seeing through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, we will misperceive, but we can shift it and we can change it through reinterpreting our misperceptions. So I love that. Like, we're always gonna, well, cancel clear. We will fall down frequently, and then we can pick ourselves up just as frequently. So I
And
don't
the
have much.
Holy Spirit's there to help us. Yeah, do that.
Well, I'll say this, Julie, from my own interpretation of it, the Holy Spirit is not outside of me. It's not an extra force. It's a choice of perception that is me. It's always available. It's just a shift in thinking, a shift in perception, and you're there. It's not separate from us in any way. Not that you were implying that, but that's how I interpret it, that it is a separate force. It isn't. It is us. It's just how we choose to redirect the mind. And then that spark of that divine, we'll call it the Holy Spirit, inside of us, almost like clicks in and comes online.
I say but this reminds me of the thing that V said a few times lately about trying to see like something from the other person's point of view, and why they might be acting the way they are and stuff. And so you probably haven't got that right trying to do that, but you have softened your look at them, and so you are closer to seeing the Holy Spirit in them, which is sort of that reinterprets its misperceptions.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're making stuff up all the time, so why not make it good?
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Shall we see what's on the next page? We may not.
Yes, we should.
Let's see. And we're going to try for number 10, see if we can finish that within our time frame. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to read that? It's a long one.
Gary.
The Holy Spirit is the perfect teacher. He uses only what your mind already understands to teach you that you do not know or you do not understand it. I should read that again. The Holy Spirit is a perfect teacher. He uses only what your mind already understands to teach you that you do not understand it. The Holy Spirit can deal with a reluctant learner without going counter to his mind, because part of it is still for God. Despite the ego's attempts to conceal this part, it is still much stronger than the ego, although the ego does not recognize it. The Holy Spirit recognizes it perfectly because it is his own dwelling place, the place in the mind where he is at home. You are at home there too, because it is a place of peace, and peace is of God. You who are part of God are not at home except in his peace. If peace is eternal, you are at home only in eternity. I love that. For me, are we realizing that this is like a constant choice of perception? That the oneness minus the split mind is the way out. The more we practice that, the more at peace we get. And the less we practice it, the more at chaos, we become.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very recognizable.
I love the second sentence. He only uses what your mind already understands to teach you that you do not understand it.
That reminds me of someone once told me once it was a coach I had for a little while, and she was talking, and I was having a really bad relationship with my mum. I always had been quite impatient with her, and we kind of clashed a fair bit. And she told me to have the next conversation I have with my mum, I'm visiting her garden, so I need to talk in terms that she understands in her garden. So there's no point me talking about the forest out there because I'm in her garden.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a beautiful metaphor, actually.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, gang, I
Mhm.
have my sentence that I want to leave with the group.
Me
Do you
too.
guys have a very specific sentence that popped out at you tonight that you want to reserve for your share that you'll do it right now, actually? So I'm going to start. I'll start it off. And Kasia, we do this. We just pick a one line out of the course that we've already read and say, oh, I love that line. And then we write it down and then we share it at the very end. So mine is the only aspect time that is, why do I not have this right? Oh yeah, the only aspect of time that is eternal is now.
Yes, it's a good one.
I made mine up a little bit. Mine is the
Good.
story I am making up is love.
I like.
I have mine from the same paragraph, I guess. Eternity and peace are closely related as are time and war.
Very good. Thank you for that. Wendy, do you have one? Are you
Yeah.
writing?
I'm gonna have to paraphrase it. What you
That's
see
good.
what you see in your brother, you strengthen in yourself.
Mm.
Awesome.
And to me,
Totally.
that's a double-edged reminder, because if I'm not looking through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, I'm strengthening my ego if I'm judging. But if I'm looking with love and forgiveness and understanding, I'm strengthening my ability to hear the Holy Spirit.
Yep. Curly, how about you, darling?
I was sort of paraphrasing as well. We only see a reflection of ourselves.
Scary thought.
Yeah.
Our releasing thought. Julie, do you have a phrase or sentence?
Oh, so many of them, but I can't. It's just it really strikes incredibly deeply that how quick we are to blame or to see fault in others, and now I realize that is kind of reflecting the fault we see in ourselves.
Absolutely. And
And
Joey, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
no, and I think that's really scary, or really
Awakening?
yes, it's so simple.
Yeah. This stuff isn't hard. It's just that we have to catch ourselves from being on autopilot.
Oh my God, I've been on
Able
autopilot for
to
weeks and
self-coach
weeks and weeks.
ourselves, and we have to learn how to self-coach ourselves. Our meetings really get to be about, yes, it's lovely to have community and it's lovely to read the Course in Miracles, but at the end of the day, it means nothing unless we're practicing it.
Yeah.
Practicing it and the embodiment of it is where we make progress. So in my opinion, our group should be about the embodiment of these principles, and then how much are we going to practice it throughout the week? So my invitation to everyone, let's make it an ardent effort to practice this, especially what I see in another, I strengthen in myself. And let's just choose to see like the very best in other people. So we strengthen that within ourselves.
But also the opposite. And that's the scary bit. You see
Well,
fault
yeah,
in
but,
others. Yeah.
but you have choice
Yeah.
to see something different than the fault.
Mm.
Joey, are you there? And are you still driving? And if you're not still driving, do you have a line that you want to share? And if not, that's cool too.
I just walked in the door. I do not have a line.
Okay, well then I'll invite you to do this because we love you so much. Say something from your heart. Just center your mind in your heart and just let that speak.
I'm working through some things right now.
Mm.
That is not an easy task. I actually wrote a whole bunch to V in private, but the screen got in my way and I touched it to move it, and it brought me back to the main screen and lost everything I wrote. So V, I'll be reaching out to you after the call.
Okay, very good. So what I heard from that is I'm enjoying learning the lesson of patience and surrender. Well, we love you, Joey. It'll be fine. And all things you will get through, my friend. Okay, gang. God bless you
That's
all.
what-
It was so nice to be here finally. Kasia, thank you so much for
Oh.
joining us. And that was awesome. And V,
I won't be able to be here next week. I've got a seminar that I have to attend to in person at this time. So it'll be 2 weeks until we meet.
oh, okay.
Because we
Sorry.
can't do it without your bits.
My bits,
Yes,
yeah, my-
you're an indispensable bit to the rest of our bits. Okay, so let me mark that out so I know.
so you don't sit there waiting for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Also,
Okay.
Julie, you remember next week at that time, you make sure you sleep well, and then you can,
Yes, sleep well. Yeah.
Yes, and it's Valentine's Day tomorrow in America. So happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And if you don't have a significant other, then make yourself the significant other.
Yes.
And do
Yes.
beautiful things for yourself and love on yourself a lot.
For
Okay.
both of ourselves.
Yes, both of ourselves. I got Robert a pop-up Baby Yoda Valentine's card. So it'll be
Oh
fun.
dear.
It's already Valentine's here.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And for you, Coralie, even more so.
Yes.
Okay, gang. Goodbye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. I'm glad I